You're nothing but a weak girl. Your training means nothing.
General Harrison Caldwell's shoulder slammed into her chest. Elena Mercer stumbled backward, her hip cracking against the briefing table as 20 officers watched in silence. "Watch where you stand, girl," he sneered. "Combat zones aren't for the weak." Blood trickled from her forehead. 115 pounds, 5'2", the smallest person in that room. Every man laughed. Every single one. None of them knew she had 47 confirmed kills. None of them knew Caldwell had murdered her father for $50 million. None of them knew that in 72 hours this weak girl would put a 3-star general on his knees and expose the deadliest corruption scandal in military history. If you want to see how this satisfying story ends, please subscribe to the channel and follow my story to the very end. Comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has traveled. The laughter hit Elena Mercer like a physical force. 20 officers, 20 men in uniform, 20 decorated soldiers who had sworn to defend their country, and every single one of them was laughing at her. General Harrison Caldwell stood at the head of the briefing table, his 3 stars gleaming under the fluorescent lights. 60 years old, square jaw, steel gray hair. The kind of man who looked like he'd been manufactured specifically to wear that uniform. "I said," Caldwell repeated, his voice carrying that particular tone of amused contempt. "Did someone order coffee? Because I'm pretty sure the briefing invitation went to Lieutenant Commander Mercer, not the catering staff." More laughter. Louder this time. Elena felt her jaw tighten. She felt the familiar heat rising in her chest. But she'd learned a long time ago that heat was just fuel. You could let it burn you, or you could let it drive you. She chose to drive. "Lieutenant Commander Elena Mercer, reporting as ordered, sir." Her voice came out steady, calm, professional. "Tactical advisor for Operation Shadowgate." Caldwell's smile didn't waver. If anything, it widened. "Tactical advisor." He said the words like they tasted bad. "Tell me, Commander, how much do you weigh? 100 pounds, 110 soaking wet." 115, sir." 115. Caldwell turned to address the room, playing to his audience like a comedian warming up a crowd. "Gentlemen SEALs carry 100-pound packs in combat. Our tactical advisor weighs less than our field gear." The laughter erupted again. Elena didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't give them a single thing. "Permission to take my seat, sir." Caldwell waved dismissively toward the back of the room. "By all means, try not to get lost on the way." She walked past 20 officers who wouldn't meet her eyes, past the smirks and the barely suppressed chuckles, past the judgment that had followed her through every single day of her military career. Colonel Marcus Webb sat in the corner, 57 years old, African-American, Vietnam-era veteran who'd seen things these younger officers couldn't imagine. He caught her eye as she passed. He wasn't laughing. Elena took her seat and opened her briefing folder. The words blurred for a moment. Not from tears. Elena Mercer didn't cry. Not anymore. The blur was just her mind processing, calculating, filing away every face that had laughed. She would remember them all, Nermwat. "Operation Shadowgate," Caldwell began, his voice shifting into command mode. "Syrian-Turkish border. We have a CIA asset trapped behind enemy lines. Dr. Yusuf Hakim, scientist with information critical to national security." He pulled up a map on the main screen. "Standard extraction. 8-man team. In and out in 48 hours. Any questions?" Elena studied the map. Studied the terrain. Studied the proposed insertion point and the extraction coordinates. Something was wrong. "Sir?" Her voice cut through the room. Caldwell's head turned slowly. The annoyance on his face was unmistakable. "Did you have something to add, Commander? The insertion point, sir. It's 2 clicks from a known hostile patrol route. If we insert at those coordinates during the proposed window, we'll be walking directly into enemy surveillance." Silence. Caldwell's expression hardened. "And you know this, how?" "I ran operations in that region for 3 years, sir. I know every patrol route, every checkpoint, every piece of ground where a sniper might set up. That insertion point is compromised." The room had gone very quiet now. Caldwell took 3 steps toward her, slowly, deliberately. The kind of walk designed to intimidate. "Let me understand this correctly." His voice was soft, dangerous. "You're telling me, a 3-star general with 40 years of experience, that my operational planning is flawed. I'm telling you, sir, that if we insert at those coordinates, American soldiers will die." The words hung in the air. Caldwell stopped directly in front of her chair. He towered over her by nearly a foot. His shadow fell across her like a judgment. "You know what I think, Commander?" Elena met his eyes. "Sir, I think you're a diversity hire, a Pentagon PR stunt, a checkbox that some politician needed to tick so they could claim progress." He leaned down, his face inches from hers. "I think you've never seen real combat. I think you've never carried a wounded brother through enemy fire. I think you're playing dress-up in a uniform you didn't earn." The room was absolutely silent now. Elena felt her father's compass against her chest. The metal was warm from her body heat. "Find your true north, Elena. The mission is never about you." "Permission to respond, sir." "Denied." Caldwell straightened. "We proceed with the original plan. Meeting adjourned." Officers began gathering their materials. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Elena stood. "Sir, with respect." Caldwell turned sharply. His shoulder caught her square in the chest. The force of it sent her stumbling backward. Her hip caught the edge of the briefing table. Pain flared through her side as she struggled to keep her balance. "Watch where you stand, girl," Caldwell's voice carried across the room. "Combat zones aren't for the weak. Maybe stick to positions where you won't get in the way of real soldiers doing real work." Elena caught herself on the table edge. Her hip throbbed, but it was the word that echoed in her mind. Girl. 20 officers witnessed what just happened. 20 officers saw a 3-star general physically assault a subordinate. 20 officers said nothing. Except one. "General Caldwell." Colonel Webb's voice was quiet but firm. "Perhaps we should discuss the operational concerns Commander Mercer raised. Her combat record in the region is extensive." Caldwell's head swiveled toward Webb. "Her record is classified." "Yes, sir, it is." Webb's eyes never wavered. "Which should tell you something." The 2 men stared at each other for a long moment. Something passed between them. Something that Elena couldn't quite read. Finally, Caldwell smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Meeting adjourned." He walked out without looking back. Elena found an empty corridor and leaned against the wall. Her hip was already bruising. She could feel it swelling beneath her uniform. That wasn't an accident. She'd seen enough combat to know the difference between collision and assault. Caldwell had turned into her deliberately, had aimed for maximum impact, had wanted to hurt her. Why? Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Conference room B, 10 minutes. Come alone. Webb." Elena stared at the message. Colonel Webb had been the only officer in that room who hadn't laughed. The only one who'd spoken up. The only one who seemed to recognize that something deeply wrong had just happened. She made her decision in 3 seconds. Webb was waiting when she arrived. The conference room was small, private, no cameras that she could see. "Close the door, Commander." She did. Webb didn't waste time on pleasantries. "How much do you know about General Caldwell?" 40 years of service, 3 stars, political connections to half the Senate, reputation for being difficult but effective. That's his public record. Webb leaned forward. "I'm asking what you know." Elena studied the older man's face. 57 years of military service had carved lines around his eyes, lines that spoke of things seen, things survived, things that couldn't be forgotten. "Why are you asking me this?" Colonel Webb was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph, slid it across the table. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The photograph showed a group of Navy SEALs. 8 men in combat gear. Desert background. The kind of photo that got taken before operations. Before things went wrong. She recognized every face, because she'd memorized them 8 years ago. "That's Team 6, she whispered. "Yemen, 2016. "You recognize anyone?" Elena's finger touched the face of the man standing in the center of the group. Tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of easy smile that made everyone around him feel safe. "Master Chief David Mercer." Her voice cracked. "My father." Webb nodded slowly. "He was the best operator I ever served with. Best man I ever knew." "You knew my father. I was his commanding officer for 6 years. I was there when they brought his body home." Webb's voice was thick with old grief. "I was there when they told us it was equipment failure, when they said the mission was compromised by faulty communication gear." Elena felt something cold settling in her stomach. "What are you telling me, Colonel?" Webb pulled out a second photograph. This one showed a younger Harrison Caldwell, Colonel's eagles on his shoulders, standing next to a man in civilian clothes. "That man is Viktor Petrov, Russian arms dealer, one of the most dangerous men in the world." Webb tapped the photo. "This picture was taken in 2015, 1 year before your father died." "That doesn't prove anything." "No, it doesn't." Webb leaned back. "But this might." He pulled out a folder. Thick, stamped with classification markings that made Elena's clearance look like a library card. 3 SEAL operations in the Syrian region have failed in the past 2 years, all due to equipment malfunctions, all approved by General Caldwell. Webb opened the folder. Communication blackouts occurred at critical moments. Extraction helicopters were delayed. Intel was somehow compromised. Elena's hands were trembling. She clenched them into fists to make them stop. "Are you telling me Caldwell is dirty?" "I'm telling you that 34 American service members have died under his command due to equipment failures. I'm telling you that someone is selling our operational plans to hostile forces. And I'm telling you that your father's mission in Yemen followed the exact same pattern." The words hit Elena like bullets, each one tearing through something she'd believed for 8 years. Equipment failure. That's what they'd told her when she was 26 years old. Standing in a hospital corridor, waiting for news that never came. They'd told her that her father died because of faulty gear. Random chance. The fortunes of war. She'd accepted it. She'd grieved. She'd channeled that grief into becoming the warrior her father had been. And now this man was telling her it was all a lie. "Why are you showing me this?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Webb's eyes met hers. "Because Operation Shadowgate is following the same pattern. Compromised insertion point. Communication window that matches previous blackouts. And General Caldwell personally approved every detail. You think he's going to get another team killed? I think he's going to try. Webb closed the folder. And I think you're the only one who can stop him. Elena walked out of that conference room a different person than when she'd walked in. 8 years. 8 years she'd blamed herself for not being there. 8 years she'd pushed herself through training that broke other soldiers. 8 years she'd killed enemies of her country while believing her father's death was just bad luck. And now she knew the truth. Her father was murdered. Murdered by a man who wore the same flag on his shoulder. Murdered by a man who shook hands with presidents and testified before Congress. Murdered by a man who had just called her girl and laughed at her in front of 20 officers. Elena found herself standing outside Caldwell's office. She didn't remember walking there. Her body had moved on autopilot while her mind processed the impossible. The door was slightly open. Voices inside. She pressed herself against the wall. Listening. The extraction window is confirmed. Caldwell's voice. Confident. Commanding. Team Phantom will insert at 0300. Communication blackout begins at 0330. A pause. Then another voice, deeper, accented in a way Elena couldn't quite place. And the asset, Dr. Hakim, he won't survive the extraction. Neither will the team. Elena's blood turned to ice. The payment, already transferred. 50 million. Same account as the others. Silence. Then Caldwell again. This ends the arrangement. After Shadowgate, I'm clean. No more operations. No more contact. You said that after Yemen. Yemen was different. Mercer was getting too close to the truth. He had to be eliminated. Elena's hand moved to her sidearm. Her fingers wrapped around the grip. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Find your true north, Elena. She could walk through that door right now. She could put a bullet in Harrison Caldwell's chest. She could avenge her father and save the team he was planning to sacrifice. And then she would spend the rest of her life in prison. The truth would die with her. Caldwell would be remembered as a hero killed by a deranged subordinate. And whoever he was working with would continue their operation with someone else. No, that wasn't how this ended. Elena forced her hand away from her weapon. Forced herself to breathe. Forced herself to think like the warrior her father had raised. She needed evidence. She needed proof. She needed to expose the entire network, not just one corrupt general. And she needed to save Team Phantom before they walked into an ambush. You want what? Master Sergeant Jake Romano stared at Elena like she'd grown a second head. At 32 years old, he was the senior enlisted operator on Team Phantom. 6'3", 220 pounds. The kind of man who looked like he bench-pressed trucks for fun. I want you to trust me, Elena repeated. I know you don't know me. I know you don't respect me. But I'm telling you that this operation is compromised. Based on what? A gut feeling. Based on intelligence that I can't share with you yet. Romano laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. Lady, I've been running operations for 12 years. My father was Master Chief David Mercer. Romano stopped laughing. Team 6, Yemen, 2016. He was killed in an operation that was supposed to be routine. Elena stepped closer. Equipment failure, they said. Communication blackout. Extraction delayed. Sound familiar? Romano's expression shifted. Something moved behind his eyes. I knew your old man. Then you know he didn't die because of bad luck. You know something went wrong. Something that shouldn't have gone wrong. Romano was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer. Dave Mercer was the best operator I ever worked with. When they told us it was equipment failure, none of us believed it. But we couldn't prove anything. He met her eyes. What do you have? Elena pulled out the folder Webb had given her. Communications intercepts, financial records, pattern analysis. Someone has been selling our operational plans for at least 8 years. And I have reason to believe General Caldwell is the source. That's a serious accusation. I heard him confirm it, 20 minutes ago, in his office. Romano's jaw tightened. You have proof? Not yet, but I will, and I need your help to get it. Diana Ortiz was the team's combat medic, 28 years old, 5'6", the kind of woman who could stabilize a sucking chest wound while taking fire and never lose her cool. She was also the only other female operator Elena had met who'd earned her place through pure skill. Let me get this straight. Diana crossed her arms. You want us to follow your plan instead of the general's, against direct orders, based on evidence you can't show us. I'm asking you to trust that I wouldn't risk American lives without good reason. You don't even know us. I know you. Elena turned to face her. Diana Ortiz, combat medic, 2 Bronze Stars, Purple Heart from Fallujah when you carried a wounded Marine 3 miles through enemy territory while taking fire. You don't leave people behind. Diana's expression flickered. You read my file. I memorized it, just like I memorized everyone's file on this team, because when I go into combat, I need to know who's watching my back. And who's watching yours? Elena touched the compass around her neck. My father. Every single day. Diana studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Okay, Commander. I'm listening. Senior Chief Tommy Williams was the last holdout. At 45 years old, he'd been operating longer than some of the team had been alive. He'd served with Elena's father for 6 years before Yemen. And he'd been there when they brought David Mercer's body home. You look just like him. Williams' voice was rough with emotion. Same eyes, same way of standing, same stubborn set to your jaw. He taught me everything I know. Not everything. Williams stepped closer. He didn't teach you how to die, how to accept that some missions don't have happy endings, how to make peace with the fact that sometimes good people lose. No. Elena met his eyes. He taught me that good people don't lose if they fight smart. He taught me that the mission always comes first. And he taught me that the only acceptable outcome is bringing everyone home alive. He didn't come home because someone betrayed him. Elena's voice hardened. Someone sold him out. Someone I'm going to find and destroy. But first I need to make sure this team doesn't suffer the same fate. Williams was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Dave was my brother. Not by blood, but by everything that matters. When he died, a part of me died with him. He straightened. If there's even a chance you're right about this, I'm with you. To the end. That night, Elena sat alone in her quarters, the folder spread out on her desk. The evidence that could destroy a 3-star general and expose a network of corruption that had killed American soldiers for a decade. Her father's compass lay beside the papers, worn smooth by 30 years of handling. The inscription on the back still visible. Find your true north. The mission is never about you. Dad. Elena picked up the compass, held it in her palm, felt the weight of it. 8 years ago, she'd stood at her father's grave and made a promise. She'd promised to honor his memory, to serve with the same courage and integrity he'd shown, to make him proud. She hadn't known then that honoring his memory would mean hunting down his killer. She knew now. Tomorrow, Operation Shadowgate would launch. 8 operators would insert into hostile territory. And somewhere in that chaos, Elena would find the proof she needed. Or she would die trying. Her phone buzzed. Message from Romano. Team's in. We trust you, Commander. Don't make us regret it. Elena typed her response. I won't. See you at 0300. We're bringing everyone home. She set down the phone and picked up her father's compass one more time. I found them, Dad. Her voice was barely a whisper. Found the ones who killed you. And I'm going to make them pay. Every single one. The compass was warm in her hand, almost like her father was holding it with her. At 0200, Elena Mercer strapped on her combat gear. 115 pounds of woman carrying 80 pounds of equipment. The weight should have been crushing. It felt like nothing. Because the real weight she carried was invisible. The weight of 34 dead Americans. The weight of her father's sacrifice. The weight of a truth that had been buried for 8 years. That weight would crush General Harrison Caldwell, and Elena Mercer would be the one to drop it on him. She touched her father's compass one final time. Then she walked out to meet her team. The weak girl was about to show them all what she was really made of. The helicopter's rotors thundered through the darkness as Team Phantom crossed into Syrian airspace. Elena sat with her back against the cold metal hull, her eyes moving across the faces of her team. 8 operators. 8 lives that General Caldwell had already written off as acceptable losses. Not on her watch. Romano sat across from her, his massive frame somehow compressed into the cramped space. He caught her eye and gave a slight nod. Trust. Hard-earned and fragile, but trust nonetheless. Diana checked her medical kit for the 3rd time. Preacher Williams cleaned his rifle with the methodical focus of a man who'd done it 10,000 times before. The other 4 operators, Morrison Chen Kowalski and Webb Jr., the colonel's own son, maintained the professional silence of soldiers about to walk into the unknown. Elena's earpiece crackled. Phantom Lead, this is Overwatch. You are 15 minutes from insertion. Confirm ready status. She recognized the voice. Lieutenant Colonel Davis Caldwell's aide. The man who'd laughed loudest in that briefing room. Phantom Lead confirms ready status. All operators green. Copy that. Communication blackout begins in 10 minutes. You'll be dark until extraction. Godspeed, Phantom. The line went dead. Romano leaned forward. That's our window. 10 minutes before they cut us off. Elena nodded. She pulled out a secondary communication device, one that wasn't on any official inventory. Colonel Webb had provided it through channels so unofficial they didn't exist. Listen up, she said, her voice cutting through the engine noise. When we go dark, we stay connected through this. Encrypted frequency that Overwatch doesn't know about. Whatever happens down there, we maintain contact. Morrison frowned. That's against protocol, Commander. Protocol is what's going to get us killed. Elena met his eyes. 3 teams have died in this region following protocol. We're not going to be the 4th. How do you know we can trust that device? Kowalski asked. Because Colonel Webb gave it to me. And because my father trusted him with his life. The name hung in the air. David Mercer. A legend among operators. Every man on this helicopter knew the stories. Webb Jr. spoke for the first time. My father said Master Chief Mercer was the best he ever served with. Said if Dave told you to jump, you didn't ask how high. You just jumped and trusted he had a reason. Elena felt something tighten in her chest. Your father's a good man, Webb. He's the reason I know what's really happening here. And what is really happening here, Commander? Elena looked at each face in turn. These men deserved the truth, even if it sounded insane. General Caldwell has been selling operational intelligence to hostile forces for at least 8 years. He's responsible for the deaths of 34 American service members, including my father. And tonight he's planning to add 8 more names to that list. Silence. Morrison shook his head slowly. That's a 3-star general you're accusing. You have proof. I heard him confirm it, yesterday, in his office. He was talking to someone about payment. $50 million. Same account as the others, he said. Jesus Christ, Kowalski breathed. The insertion point is compromised. Enemy forces already know we're coming. If we land at the designated coordinates, we walk straight into an ambush. Romano's jaw tightened. So what's the play? Elena pulled up a mental map of the terrain. Years of operating in this region had burned every detail into her memory. We insert 2 clicks south of the designated point. Rocky terrain. Harder landing, but no sight lines for enemy observation. From there, we move to the asset's location on foot. That adds 3 hours to the mission timeline, Diana pointed out. 3 hours alive is better than 30 minutes dead. No one argued. The pilot's voice came through the intercom. 5 minutes to insertion. Beginning descent. Elena stood her gear, shifting with the movement. 115 pounds of woman, 80 pounds of equipment, and the weight of 8 lives she'd sworn to protect. One more thing, she said. When we get Dr. Hakim, he has information. Evidence that proves everything I just told you. That evidence is our ticket home. Without it, we're just soldiers who went AWOL on a classified mission. With it, we're the ones who exposed the biggest corruption scandal in military history. Romano stood beside her. His massive frame filled the helicopter's interior. I spent 12 years taking orders without question, following protocol, trusting the chain of command. He extended his hand toward Elena. Tonight, I follow you. Don't make me regret it. Elena gripped his hand. I won't. The helicopter banked hard. Insertion in 60 seconds. The mission had begun. They hit the ground running. Elena's boots found purchase on the rocky terrain 2 clicks south of where Caldwell expected them to be. Around her, 7 operators moved with the fluid precision of men who'd trained for exactly this moment. No words needed. Hand signals only. Elena took point. Her smaller frame moved through the darkness like smoke. This was why she'd earned her call sign. Ghost. The enemy never saw her coming. Romano fell in behind her, his bulk somehow silent despite his size. Diana stayed close to the center of the formation. Preacher brought up the rear, his experienced eyes watching for any threat they might have missed. 3 hours of movement. 3 hours of controlled breathing and measured steps. 3 hours of silence, broken only by the occasional burst of wind. Elena's mind never stopped calculating. Patrol routes, sight lines, potential ambush points. Every piece of intelligence she'd gathered over years of operating in this region playing out like a chess game in her head. At the 2-hour mark, Romano's voice came through her earpiece. Movement, 200 meters east, 4 tangos. Elena held up a closed fist. The team froze. She raised her rifle scope to her eye. 4 enemy combatants, AK-47s, moving in a standard patrol pattern, heading directly toward the designated insertion point. They're checking the landing zone, she whispered. Looking for us. They knew exactly where we were supposed to be, Romano said. You were right, Commander. Being right doesn't matter if we're dead. Hold position. Let them pass. 4 agonizing minutes. The patrol moved within 50 meters of their position, close enough that Elena could hear them talking, close enough that one wrong move, one accidental sound would bring everything crashing down. Diana's hand found Elena's arm in the darkness, squeezing once, steady, strong. The patrol passed. Elena waited another 60 seconds. Then she signaled the team forward. They'd just passed the first test. The real ones were coming. The compound where Dr. Hakim was being held appeared exactly as intelligence had described. 3 buildings, multiple guards, a nightmare of overlapping sight lines and defensive positions. But Elena had seen worse. Thermal shows the asset in the northwest building, Morrison reported. 2 guards outside, unknown number inside. Pattern? Elena asked. Guards rotate every 20 minutes. We've got a window in 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Elena used every second. Romano, you take Morrison and Chen. North approach. Disable the guards quietly. Copy. Diana Kowalski, you're with me. West approach. We breach when Romano confirms clear. Copy. Webb, Preacher. You hold the perimeter. Anything moves that isn't us, put it down. Copy. Elena checked her weapon one final time. On my mark. We move in 5. The minutes crawled past, each second stretched into eternity. Mark! 8 operators moved as one. Elena reached the west wall of the building in 30 seconds. Her breathing was controlled, her heart rate steady. Years of training had made this as natural as walking. Romano's voice crackled in her ear. 2 tangos down, silent, perimeter clear. Copy. Breaching in 3, 2, 1. Elena's boot connected with the door. It flew inward. She moved through the opening before it finished swinging her rifle, sweeping left as Diana swept right. 2 guards inside, both reaching for their weapons. Elena dropped the first one with a double tap to center mass. Diana handled the second. Total elapsed time, 4 seconds. They found Dr. Hakim in a back room, older than his file photo, thinner, but alive. Dr. Hakim, Elena said, lowering her weapon. We're American military. We're here to bring you home. The scientist's eyes went wide. You're not the team they were expecting. What do you mean? The men holding me. They received communication 2 hours ago. Said an American team was coming. Said to let them land, then eliminate them. Elena's blood ran cold. They knew our exact insertion point. Down to the coordinates. They were laughing about it. Said the American general had given them everything they needed. Romano's voice cut through. Commander, we've got incoming. Multiple vehicles. East approach. ETA 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Not enough time to extract through the planned route. Morrison Chen, grab the doctor. Get him to the secondary extraction point. What secondary extraction point? Morrison asked. The one I arranged through Colonel Webb. 2 clicks north. Helicopter will be there in 20 minutes. What about us? Elena checked her ammunition. 2 full magazines, plus her sidearm. We buy you time. The next 3 minutes were chaos. Enemy vehicles roared toward the compound, headlights cutting through the darkness. The sound of men shouting orders in Arabic. Elena positioned herself at the east window. Romano took the south. Diana stayed mobile, ready to respond wherever the threat was greatest. Contact, Romano called. 15 tangos, maybe more. Weapons, AKs, RPGs. They came ready for a fight. Elena smiled grimly. So did we. The first wave hit the compound like a hammer. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Muzzle flashes lit up the night. Elena's rifle spoke twice. 2 enemies dropped. 3 more emerged from cover. She took each one with calculated precision. 1 shot, 1 kill. The mathematics of survival. 6 tangos down on my side, Romano reported. They keep coming. Hold the line. Morrison, what's your status? 500 meters from extraction point. Taking fire from our 6. Preacher Webb, break off and cover Morrison's retreat. Copy, Commander? Elena changed positions. Her smaller frame allowed her to move through spaces the larger operators couldn't. She found a new angle. Took 3 more enemies before they realized where the fire was coming from. 9 tangos down, Diana called. But I'm counting at least 20 more incoming. 20 against 4. Those weren't good odds. But Elena had faced worse. Romano, fall back to my position. We consolidate and push north. Copy. Moving. An explosion shook the building. RPG round. Close. Diana, you hit. Negative, but they're getting our range. Romano appeared beside Elena, his rifle still smoking. We can't hold this position much longer. We don't have to. We just need to buy Morrison another 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a lifetime in a firefight, Commander. Elena met his eyes. Then we make it count. She moved before he could respond. Out the door. Into the open. Everything her trainers had taught her said this was suicide. Never expose yourself. Never leave cover. But everything her father had taught her said sometimes you had to draw fire to save your team. The enemies saw her immediately, a small figure sprinting through the darkness. Every weapon in the compound turned toward her. Elena ran like she'd never run before. Bullets tore through the air around her. Dirt exploded at her feet. 1 round caught the edge of her sleeve close enough to burn. She dove behind a low wall. Came up firing. 3 more enemies dropped. What the hell are you doing? Romano's voice was incredulous. Drawing their attention. Elena changed magazines with practiced efficiency. Get Diana and push north. I'll catch up. I'm not leaving you here. That's an order, Sergeant. With respect, Commander, that's a stupid order. Elena laughed despite everything. Actually laughed. Then stay and help me kill these bastards. Romano's rifle roared beside her. Now that's an order I can follow. 8 minutes. 8 minutes of the most intense combat Elena had ever experienced. She lost count of how many enemies fell. 15, 20, more. They kept coming, and she kept putting them down. Her shoulder ached from the rifle's recoil. Her lungs burned from exertion. But her hands stayed steady. Her aim stayed true. Morrison's at the extraction point, Diana reported. Helicopter inbound, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Elena allowed herself to feel a moment of relief. Then the radio crackled with a voice that made her blood freeze. Phantom Lead, this is Overwatch. Stand down immediately. You have disobeyed direct orders and compromised a classified operation. General Caldwell has authorized lethal force against your team. Caldwell. Even here. Even now. He was still trying to kill them. Overwatch, this is Phantom Lead. General Caldwell is a traitor. We have evidence proving he has been selling intelligence to hostile forces. Request immediate. Your request is denied, Phantom Lead. You have 60 seconds to surrender. After that, you will be treated as enemy combatants. The line went dead. Romano stared at her. Did he just... Yes. Elena's jaw tightened. He's going to use our own people against us. What do we do? Elena looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, American aircraft were being vectored toward their position. Pilots who believed they were targeting enemies of their country. She had 60 seconds to make an impossible choice. Morrison, what's the status on Dr. Hakim? On the helicopter, lifting off now. Does he have the evidence? He says he has everything, financial records, communications intercepts, proof of every operation Caldwell compromised. Elena closed her eyes. The evidence was safe. The mission was complete. Now she just had to survive. All units break contact. Head north. Scatter pattern. We regroup at the secondary rally point. Commander, what about the air support Caldwell called? We stay low. We stay quiet. We become ghosts. She touched her father's compass one more time. Move. Now. The next 20 minutes were a nightmare. Elena moved through terrain that would have killed anyone without her training. Rocky ground, steep drops, darkness so complete that each step was an act of faith. Twice she heard aircraft overhead. American aircraft. Looking for her. Looking to kill her. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent her entire career protecting her country. Now her country was hunting her like an animal, because one corrupt general had decided she was a threat. She reached the rally point at 0530. Romano was already there. Diana arrived 2 minutes later. Preacher and Webb Jr. came in together, both bloodied but functional. Morrison Chen Kowalski, report. Static. Morrison, report. Nothing. Anyone have eyes on the others? Romano shook his head. Lost contact during the scatter. Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. 3 of her team. Missing. We go back, she said. Commander, we can't. Caldwell has aircraft covering the entire area. If we move now... I said we go back. Her voice left no room for argument. We don't leave people behind, ever. Romano stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, Commander. We go back. Diana checked her medical kit. If they're wounded, I can stabilize them. Preacher chambered around. If anyone tries to stop us, I'll handle it. Webb Jr. looked at Elena with something like awe in his eyes. My father was right about you, Commander. You really are like Master Chief Mercer. Elena touched her father's compass. Let's move. We've got people to save. They found Morrison first, wounded, left leg torn up from shrapnel, but alive. Thought you'd left us, he said as Diana worked on his leg. Never. Elena squeezed his shoulder. Where are Chen and Kowalski? Got separated during the scatter. Last I saw they were heading toward the ridge. The ridge. One of the most exposed positions in the entire area. Stay with Diana. We'll be back. Elena led Romano and Preacher toward the ridge, every instinct screaming that this was a trap, that Caldwell was watching, waiting. She kept moving anyway. They found Chen first, unconscious but breathing. Concussion from the blast, most likely. Kowalski was 30 meters away. He wasn't moving. Elena reached him first, checked for a pulse. Nothing. She checked again, pressed harder, willed her fingers to find something, anything. Nothing. Romano knelt beside her. Commander, he's gone. Elena's voice was hollow. Kowalski is gone. 24 years old. First deployment. Wife back home expecting their first child. Gone. Because Harrison Caldwell decided American lives were worth $50 million. Elena stood. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear. From rage. We need to move, Commander. Romano's voice was gentle. We can't help him now. No. Elena looked down at Kowalski's body. But we can make sure he didn't die for nothing. She pulled his dog tags from around his neck, pressed them against her lips. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Then she turned and started walking. The mission wasn't over. It was just beginning. The secondary extraction helicopter found them at 0645. Colonel Webb had pulled strings Elena didn't even know existed to get them out. As the helicopter lifted off, Elena watched the Syrian landscape fall away beneath them. Somewhere down there, Kowalski's body lay waiting for recovery. Somewhere down there, the evidence of Caldwell's betrayal was being loaded onto aircraft heading back to American soil. And somewhere back at Fort Bragg, a 3-star general was about to discover that the weak girl he'd laughed at was still alive, still breathing, still coming for him. Elena pulled out her phone, typed a message to Colonel Webb. Assets secure. Evidence intact. 1 KIA. Caldwell knows we survived. Coming home. The response came in 30 seconds. Welcome back, Commander. The real war starts now. Elena looked at her team. Battered. Bloodied. One man short, but alive and ready to fight. She touched her father's compass one final time. We're coming for you, Caldwell. Every single one of us. And when we're done, everyone will know exactly what you are. The helicopter banked east. Toward home. Toward justice. Toward the reckoning that Harrison Caldwell had earned with 34 American lives, including David Mercer. Elena closed her eyes. The weak girl was done playing nice. The helicopter touched down at Fort Bragg at 0800. Elena was the first one off her boots hitting American soil with the weight of everything she now carried. Kowalski's dog tags hung around her neck beside her father's compass. 2 pieces of metal. 2 lives that demanded justice. Colonel Webb waited on the tarmac. His face told her everything she needed to know before he spoke a single word. Caldwell knows you're alive. He's already spinning the narrative. What's he saying? That you went rogue, that you compromised a classified operation, that you're responsible for Kowalski's death. Webb's jaw tightened. He's calling for your immediate arrest and court-martial. Elena felt Romano step up beside her. His presence was solid, reassuring. What about the evidence? She asked. Dr. Hakim's files, being processed at a secure location. My people are on it. Webb lowered his voice. But Elena, you need to understand something. Caldwell has friends, powerful friends, senators, Pentagon officials, people who have benefited from his arrangements. I don't care who his friends are. You should. Because right now those friends are deciding whether you're a hero or a traitor. And they're leaning toward traitor. Diana appeared beside them, her medical kit still strapped to her back. Commander Morrison needs a hospital. Chen, too. We can't just stand here talking. Get them to medical, Elena ordered. Webb, Preacher, go with them. Make sure no one interferes. What about you? Romano asked. Elena looked toward the command center. Somewhere in there, Harrison Caldwell was orchestrating her destruction, calling her a traitor, blaming her for Kowalski's death. I'm going to have a conversation with the general. That's suicide. Maybe. Elena started walking. But I didn't survive Syria to hide from a man who sells American lives. Romano caught her arm. Then I'm coming with you. Jake, don't argue, Commander. You pulled me out of that firefight. You saved my life. Where you go, I go. Elena looked at him. 12 years of special operations experience, 220 pounds of trained killer, and he was choosing to follow her into what might be the last fight of both their lives. All right, she said, let's go introduce ourselves. They walked toward the command center together. The weak girl and the giant who'd learned to respect her. Caldwell wouldn't know what hit him. The command center was chaos when they arrived. Officers moving between stations, screens displaying news coverage of a failed special operations mission. Elena's name already appearing in classified briefings as the officer responsible. Caldwell stood at the central briefing table. Same position as 3 days ago, same arrogant stance, same contempt in his eyes when he saw her enter. But something else, too. Something she hadn't seen before. Fear. "Captain Thorne," his voice carried across the room. "You have exactly 5 seconds to explain why you shouldn't be arrested for treason." "It's Commander Thorne." Elena walked toward him, slowly, deliberately. "And the only person in this room who should be worried about treason is you." The room went silent. Caldwell's expression flickered, just for a moment. Then the mask returned. "Careful, Commander. Making accusations against a superior officer is a serious matter. So is selling classified intelligence to hostile forces." Elena stopped 3 feet from him, close enough to see the pulse jumping in his neck. "So is getting 34 American service members killed for profit. So is murdering my father." The words hung in the air like grenades waiting to detonate. "Your father died in a combat operation 8 years ago. Equipment failure. It's in the official record." "The official record you falsified." Elena pulled out her phone. "I have Dr. Hakim's files, General, financial records, communications intercepts, proof of every operation you compromised, including Yemen 2016. Caldwell's face went pale. Actually pale. The color draining away like water down a sink. That's classified material. You had no authorization." "I had authorization from Colonel Webb, from the Secretary of Defense's office, from everyone who matters." Elena stepped closer. "It's over Caldwell. The only question now is whether you go quietly, or whether I drag you out of here in front of everyone who ever believed your lies." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Caldwell smiled. It was the smile of a cornered animal. Desperate. Dangerous. "You think you've won?" His voice was soft, almost gentle. "You think a few files are going to bring me down? I have friends in every branch of government. Senators who owe me favors. Pentagon officials who depend on my discretion. Your friends are about to become very busy distancing themselves from you. Maybe, but not before I finish what I started." Caldwell's hand moved toward his sidearm. "You should have stayed dead in Syria, Commander. It would have been easier for everyone." Elena saw the movement, recognized the intent. Her training took over. She moved before Caldwell's fingers touched his weapon. Her smaller frame was an advantage now. Faster. More agile. She closed the distance in a heartbeat. Her hand caught his wrist. Twisted. The joint locked at an angle that sent pain screaming through his arm. Caldwell gasped. His weapon clattered to the floor. But he wasn't finished. His other hand came around. A punch aimed at her temple, the kind of blow that could kill if it landed right. Elena ducked under it, used his momentum against him. Her foot swept his legs. Her elbow drove into his solar plexus. Caldwell went down hard. 200 pounds of 3-star general hitting the floor like a sack of concrete. Elena was on him before he could recover. Her knee on his chest, her forearm across his throat. 115 pounds, she said quietly. "Playing dress-up in a uniform I didn't earn. Isn't that what you said?" Caldwell struggled, tried to throw her off. But her position was perfect. Years of training had taught her exactly how to control a larger opponent. "You're nothing," he spat. "A diversity hire, a checkbox. You'll never. I'm the woman who just put you on your back in front of 30 officers." Elena increased the pressure on his throat. I'm the woman who survived your ambush. I'm the woman who's going to make sure you spend the rest of your life in a cell. She leaned closer. And I'm David Mercer's daughter, the man you murdered for $50 million. Something broke in Caldwell's eyes. The arrogance, the contempt, the certainty that he was untouchable. It all shattered in that moment. It wasn't personal, he whispered. Your father. He was getting too close, asking questions, following money trails. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. Elena's voice was ice. You chose profit over honor. You chose money over American lives. And now you're going to pay for every single one of them. Military police burst through the door. 6 of them. Weapons drawn. Commander Mercer, step away from the general. Elena looked up. Lieutenant Colonel Davis stood at the head of the MPs, Caldwell's aide, the man who'd laughed loudest in that briefing room. On whose authority? General Caldwell's authority. You're under arrest for assault on a superior officer. Elena didn't move. Her knee stayed on Caldwell's chest, her eyes locked on Davis. Check your phone, Lieutenant Colonel. Davis frowned. What? Check your phone. Slowly, Davis pulled out his phone. His face went white as he read the screen. That's a message from the Secretary of Defense, Elena said. Ordering General Caldwell's immediate arrest pending investigation into treason conspiracy and 34 counts of felony murder. She looked down at Caldwell. Your friends are already running general. Nobody wants to be the last one holding the bag. Davis lowered his weapon. The other MPs followed. Secure the general, Davis said quietly. Commander Mercer, I apologize. Elena stood slowly. Her body ached. The adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. You laughed at me, she said to Davis. 3 days ago, in this room. You laughed. Davis couldn't meet her eyes. I was wrong. Yes, you were. Elena stepped back as the MPs moved in to restrain Caldwell. Remember that the next time someone small walks through those doors, size doesn't determine worth. Character does. She walked toward the exit. Romano fell in beside her. Behind them, Harrison Caldwell was being handcuffed by the same officers who had served under him for years. The weak girl had just brought down a 3-star general, and she was just getting started. Colonel Webb's secure facility was a converted warehouse on the edge of Fort Bragg. No signs, no markings, just another anonymous building that didn't officially exist. Inside, Dr. Yusuf Hakim sat at a computer terminal, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Commander Mercer. He stood as Elena entered. I was beginning to think you wouldn't make it. It took longer than expected. Elena looked at the screens surrounding them. Financial records, communications logs, names and dates and dollar amounts. Is this everything I could recover? 8 years of transactions, 34 operations compromised. And Hakim hesitated. Something else. What? Caldwell wasn't working alone. Hakim pulled up a new file. He was receiving instructions from someone higher, someone he referred to only as Nightfall. Elena's blood went cold. She remembered the encrypted message Caldwell received during that first briefing, the conversation she'd overheard in his office. Who is Nightfall? I don't know, but whoever they are, they're still operational. Caldwell was just... Hakim searched for the word. Middle management. The real architect is still out there. Romano stepped forward. How high does this go? Based on the money trail's Pentagon level, maybe higher. Hakim's face was grim. Commander Caldwell compromised 34 operations, but the files suggest Nightfall has been active for at least 15 years. The body count could be in the hundreds. Elena felt the weight of it settling on her shoulders. She'd come here to avenge her father, to expose one corrupt general. Instead, she'd uncovered a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of American military command. "We need to get this to the Secretary of Defense," she said. "Immediately." "Already done." Colonel Webb appeared in the doorway. "The Secretary is on her way, along with some people you need to meet." "Who?" Webb smiled. It was the first genuine smile Elena had seen on his face since this all began. "The people who are going to help you finish this." Secretary of Defense. Catherine Westwood was not what Elena expected. 62 years old, silver hair cut short, the kind of presence that filled a room without effort. She wore her authority like armor, but her eyes held something Elena recognized. The look of someone who had lost people to this war. "Commander Mercer." Westwood extended her hand. "I served with your mother." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. "My mother, Commander Evelyn Thorne. She was my flight instructor at Pensacola back when female pilots were even rarer than they are now." Westwood's grip was firm. "She taught me that excellence wasn't about proving doubters wrong. It was about being so good that capability became undeniable." "I never knew that." "There's a lot about your mother you probably don't know. She was one of the bravest officers I ever served with." Westwood released her hand. "And now her daughter has exposed the biggest corruption scandal in military history. She would be proud." Elena felt something crack inside her chest. A wall she'd built years ago. A wall that kept the grief contained. "My father was murdered by Harrison Caldwell." "I know. I've read the files." Westwood's expression hardened. "And I promise you, Commander, everyone involved in his death will face justice. Everyone. It's bigger than Caldwell. There's someone else. Someone called Nightfall." "I know that too." Westwood turned to face the screens. "That's why I'm here. That's why I'm offering you something that doesn't officially exist. Ma'am, a task force, codename Sentinel, mandate to investigate and eliminate internal threats to American military operations. No oversight from normal chain of command. Direct report to my office and congressional intelligence committees." Elena stared at her. "You're asking me to lead it?" "I'm asking you to do what you've already proven you can do. Hunt corruption, expose traitors, protect American lives." Westwood met her eyes. "Your father spent his life serving this country. Caldwell took that from him. From you. From everyone who loved him." "Yes, ma'am. Now you have a chance to make sure no one else loses what you lost. To build something that outlasts any individual investigation. To fundamentally change how we protect our own people." Elena looked at Romano, at Webb, at Diana, who had somehow appeared without her noticing. "I have one condition," Elena said. "Name it." "My team, the people who survived Syria with me. They're part of this." Westwood nodded. "Anyone you want. Budget is classified, but substantial. Resources are whatever you need." She paused. "There's something else you should know." "What?" "The message you received in Syria. The one that warned you about the ambush." Westwood pulled out a piece of paper. "We traced its origin." Elena's heart stopped. Who sent it? Someone using Nightfall's own communication network. Someone on the inside who wanted Caldwell to fail. Westwood handed her the paper. Someone who signed the message, Ghost. Elena stared at the paper. Ghost. Her own call sign. Someone had used her identity to save her life. "There's a mole in Nightfall's organization," she said slowly. Someone who's been waiting for this moment. That's our assessment, which means you're not alone in this fight. Westwood smiled. Whoever Ghost is, they've given us an opening. The question is whether you're ready to take it. Elena looked at her father's compass, at Kowalski's dog tags, at the evidence of 8 years of betrayal spread across the screens around her. When do I start? You already have. Westwood turned to leave. Major Mercer, congratulations on your promotion. Ma'am, you didn't think I was going to let a lieutenant commander lead my most classified task force, did you? Westwood paused at the door. Welcome to the hunt, Major. Don't let me down. She was gone before Elena could respond. Romano let out a long breath. Did that just happen? Yeah. Elena touched her new rank insignia. I think it did. So what now, Major? Elena looked at the screens, at the names and dates and dollar amounts that represented decades of betrayal, at the shadow network that had killed her father and 33 other Americans, at the ghost who had saved her life. Now we find Nightfall, she said, and we burn it to the ground. That night, Elena stood alone in the secure facility. The others had gone. Romano to check on Morrison and Chen. Diana to grab a few hours of sleep. Webb to coordinate with Westwood's office. But Elena couldn't sleep. Not yet. She pulled out her phone, opened the encrypted message app. For a long moment, she stared at the blank screen. Then she typed, Ghost, I know you're watching. I know you saved my life. Thank you. She hesitated, then continued, I don't know who you are. I don't know why you're helping, but I'm going to find Nightfall. I'm going to expose everyone involved, and when I do, I hope you'll be there to help me finish this. She sent the message into the void. 3 minutes later, a response appeared. I've been waiting 8 years for someone strong enough to fight this war. Your father was close. Caldwell eliminated him before he could finish. I've been building the case ever since, waiting for the right moment, the right person. Elena's hands trembled as she typed, Who are you? The response came in 10 seconds. Someone who lost everything to Nightfall. Someone who's been hiding in their organization for 15 years. Someone who knows every name, every transaction, every secret. Another message followed. I'm the reason you survived Syria. I'm the reason Caldwell's ambush failed. And I'm the reason you're going to win this war. Elena stared at the screen. What do you want from me? The final message appeared. I want you to do what I couldn't. I want you to stand in the light while I work in the shadows. I want you to be the face of justice while I remain the ghost that haunts them. A pause. Your father called me his best friend. We served together for 6 years. When he died, I swore I would finish what he started. Now you're here. His daughter. His legacy. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. Tears she hadn't allowed herself to cry in 8 years. Who are you? She typed again. The response was a name. A name she recognized. A name that changed everything. My name is Michael Torres, your father's spotter. The man everyone thinks died with him in Yemen. The ghost in Nightfall's machine. Elena dropped the phone. Her father's partner. His best friend. The man who was supposed to have died beside him. Alive. And waiting for her. The war against Nightfall had just gotten a lot more complicated. And a lot more personal. Elena didn't sleep that night. Couldn't sleep. The name burned in her mind like a brand. Michael Torres, her father's best friend, his spotter for 6 years, the man who was supposed to have died beside him in Yemen. Alive. She remembered Torres from her childhood, a tall man with kind eyes who used to bring her souvenirs from every deployment. A carved wooden elephant from Somalia, a silk scarf from Afghanistan. Small gifts that said, "I was thinking of you even in the worst places on earth." He'd been at her father's funeral, standing in the back, face like stone, and then he'd disappeared. Everyone assumed grief had broken him, that he'd crawled into a bottle or worse. Some said he'd gone back to combat and died in some unmarked grave overseas, but he hadn't died. He'd been hiding, waiting, building a case against the people who murdered his best friend. For 8 years. Elena's phone buzzed at 0500. Encrypted message. Warehouse District, Building 7. Come alone. Torres. She was out the door in 3 minutes. Romano caught her in the corridor. Where are you going? I have to meet someone. At 5 in the morning alone. Romano blocked her path. After everything that's happened, it's someone I trust. Who? Elena hesitated. The information felt too raw, too personal, too impossible to explain. Someone who knew my father, someone who's been helping us from the inside. Romano's eyes narrowed. The ghost. Yes. Then I'm coming with you. Jake. Don't argue, Major. He used her new rank deliberately. You gave me an order in Syria, told me to trust you. I did. Now I'm asking you to trust me. We don't walk into unknowns alone. Elena looked at him. This man who had laughed at her 3 days ago, who had questioned her capability, who had doubted everything she claimed to be, and who had followed her through hell without hesitation when it mattered. All right, she said, but let me do the talking. Yes, ma'am. They moved out together, the weak girl and her giant, walking toward a ghost. Building 7 was exactly what Elena expected. Anonymous, abandoned, the kind of place where secrets went to die, or to be born. She entered first, Romano 3 steps behind, both weapons drawn. The interior was dark, silent. The only light came from a single lamp in the far corner. A figure stood beneath it. Tall, lean, the kind of physique that came from decades of military training. Gray hair now where it had been dark in her memories. Lines on his face that hadn't been there before. But the eyes were the same. Kind. Sad. Carrying weight that never quite went away. Elena. Michael Torres's voice cracked on her name. God, you look just like him. Elena stopped 10 feet away. Her weapon stayed up. Everyone said you were dead. I know. They said you died with him, in Yemen. They said you were buried in Arlington. I know. But you didn't die. Elena's voice hardened. You survived. And you didn't tell anyone. You let us believe. I had to. Torres took a step forward, stopped when Romano's weapon tracked him. Elena, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you abandoned us, that you let my mother's heart break thinking she'd lost her husband and his best friend, that you watched from the shadows while we grieved. I watched over you. Torres's voice was raw. Every day, every deployment, every mission you ran, I was there, making sure you came home safe. That's not the same. No, it's not. Torres lowered his head. But it was all I could do. Elena felt the rage building in her chest. 8 years of grief. 8 years of questions. 8 years of wondering why her father had to die. And this man had known the truth the entire time. Start talking, she said, from the beginning. And if I think you're lying, Romano puts a bullet in your knee. Torres almost smiled. You really are Dave's daughter. Don't. Elena's weapon didn't waver. You don't get to talk about him. Not yet. Not until I understand. Torres nodded slowly. Then he began. Yemen was supposed to be routine. Target extraction. In and out in 48 hours. Torres paced as he spoke. Old habit. Elena remembered her father doing the same thing when he was working through a problem. Dave had been asking questions for months, following money trails, noticing patterns in failed operations. He thought someone was selling us out, someone high up. He was right. He was always right. Torres's voice caught. 3 days before Yemen, he told me he had a lead, a name, someone in the Pentagon who was connected to an arms dealer named Viktor Petrov. Caldwell. Caldwell was part of it, but he wasn't the top. Dave found evidence of someone else, someone who was giving Caldwell orders, someone who called themselves Nightfall. Elena lowered her weapon slightly. Who is Nightfall? That's what we were trying to find out. Dave had a meeting scheduled with a source, someone inside the network who wanted out. Torres stopped pacing. The source never showed. Instead, we walked into an ambush. How did you survive? Torres was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. Dave pushed me into a drainage ditch, took the first burst of fire himself. By the time I crawled out, he was already... Torres's hands were shaking. I held him. At the end, told him I'd finish what he started. Told him I'd take care of you. You didn't take care of me. You disappeared. Because if anyone knew I was alive, they'd come for me. For you. For everyone Dave loved. Torres met her eyes. The only way to protect you was to become a ghost. To disappear into their organization and destroy them from the inside. 15 years. Elena's voice was ice. You've been inside Nightfall for 15 years. Building the case, documenting everything, waiting for someone strong enough to bring them down. Torres stepped closer. I tried to do it alone. Failed. They're too protected, too connected, too powerful. So you waited for me. I waited for someone who could stand in the light while I worked in the shadows. Someone who could be the face of justice. Torres's eyes glistened. I waited for Dave's daughter to become the warrior he always knew she would be. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. A wall she'd built. A barrier against hope. Who is Nightfall? She asked again. Give me a name. Torres pulled out a photograph, handed it to her. Elena's blood turned to ice. The photograph showed a man in his 70s, distinguished, silver-haired. The kind of face that appeared on magazine covers and news broadcasts. A face she recognized. General Arthur Blackwood, Torres said, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, second most powerful military officer in the United States. That's impossible. Is it? Torres pulled out more photographs, more documents. 30 years of corruption, hundreds of millions in illegal weapons deals, and a body count that makes Caldwell look like an amateur. Elena stared at the evidence. Her hands were trembling. Blackwood was at my father's memorial service. He gave the eulogy. He called Dave a hero. He called him a hero while counting the money he made from killing him. Torres's voice was bitter. That's who these people are, Elena. They shake your hand and stab you in the back. They wear medals and ribbons while American soldiers die for their profits. Romano stepped forward. How do we take him down? We can't, not yet. Torres gathered the photographs. Blackwood is protected by layers of deniability. Caldwell was his buffer. Now that Caldwell's exposed, Blackwood is scrambling to cover his tracks. So we move fast, Elena said, before he can destroy the evidence. There's a meeting tonight, Blackwood and his remaining network. They're gathering to discuss damage control. Torres handed her a piece of paper. This is the location. This is our window. Elena looked at the address. Her stomach dropped. This is the Pentagon. Blackwood thinks he's untouchable inside his own fortress. Tonight we prove him wrong. How? We can't just walk into the Pentagon and arrest the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Torres smiled. It was the first real smile Elena had seen on his face. We don't arrest him. We expose him. Live. In front of everyone who matters. How? The Secretary of Defense is hosting a reception tonight. Every senior military official in Washington will be there, including Blackwood. Torres's eyes gleamed. I've spent 15 years building a network inside that building. People who know the truth. People who are tired of staying silent. You want to confront him publicly. I want to destroy him publicly. I want every general, every admiral, every senator in that room to see what he really is. Torres stepped closer. And I want you to be the one who pulls the trigger. Elena looked at the evidence in her hands. 30 years of corruption. Hundreds of dead Americans. Her father's face, staring up at her from a photograph taken 6 months before he died. I'm in, she said. Romano nodded. So am I. Torres extended his hand. Then let's finish what your father started. Elena gripped it. 3 people against the most powerful military officer in the country. The odds were impossible. But Elena Mercer had been beating impossible odds her entire life. The Pentagon reception was exactly as Torres had described. Senior officials everywhere, medals and ribbons and enough stars to fill a constellation. Elena wore her dress uniform for the first time since her promotion ceremony. Major's oak leaves on her shoulders. Ribbons she'd earned in operations that didn't officially exist. The weak girl walking into the lion's den. Romano stayed close, civilian clothes, blending with the catering staff Torres had arranged. Target acquired. Torres's voice came through her earpiece. Blackwood is in the main hall, 6 o'clock from your position. Elena turned slowly. There he was. General Arthur Blackwood, 73 years old, 4 stars on his shoulders, the kind of commanding presence that made people instinctively straighten their posture, and a murderer who had killed American soldiers for 30 years. Hold position, Torres said. We need Secretary Westwood in place before we move. Copy. Elena grabbed a glass of champagne she had no intention of drinking, smiled at officers who passed, played the part of a newly promoted major attending her first Pentagon function. Inside, her heart was racing. Major Mercer. Elena turned. Her blood froze. General Blackwood stood 3 feet away, smiling, extending his hand. I've heard a great deal about you. His grip was firm, confident. The woman who brought down Harrison Caldwell. Impressive work. Thank you, sir. Caldwell was a disgrace to the uniform, selling out American soldiers for profit. Blackwood shook his head in practiced disappointment. I'm glad you exposed him before he could do more damage. Elena felt bile rising in her throat. This man, standing in front of her, pretending to be a patriot, pretending to care about the soldiers he'd been killing for decades. I was just doing my job, sir. And doing it well. Blackwood's eyes held hers. Something moved behind them. Something calculating. Tell me, Major, are you satisfied now that Caldwell is facing justice? A test. He was testing her. Justice is ongoing, sir. There's still work to be done. Is there? Blackwood smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. I would have thought Caldwell was the end of it. No, sir. Elena met his gaze. Caldwell was just middle management. The real architects are still operational. Silence. Blackwood's smile faded. Just for a moment. A flicker of something dark crossing his face before the mask returned. Be careful, Major. His voice dropped. Ambition is admirable, but reaching too high can be dangerous. Is that a threat, sir? It's advice. Blackwood leaned closer. From someone who has been in this building longer than you've been alive, some enemies are too powerful to fight. Some battles aren't worth winning. My father taught me differently. Your father is dead. The words hit like bullets. Elena felt her fists clenching, felt the rage surging up from somewhere deep inside. Yes, sir. Her voice was ice. He is. And I'm going to find out exactly why. Blackwood studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You really are David Mercer's daughter. The same stubborn courage, the same refusal to know when you're beaten. He stepped back. I'll be watching your career with great interest, Major. Great interest indeed. He walked away. Elena's hands were shaking. You okay? Romano's voice in her earpiece. He knows. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. He knows I'm coming for him. Then we move now, Torres said. Secretary Westwood is in position. All assets ready. Elena looked across the room. Westwood stood near the main stage, flanked by her security detail. She caught Elena's eye and gave a slight nod. On my mark, Elena said. Copy. Elena started walking toward the stage. Each step felt like a mile. Each heartbeat thundered in her ears. This was it. The moment everything changed. Major Mercer. A hand caught her arm. Elena spun. Colonel Webb Jr. stood there. His face was pale. Urgent. You need to see this. Now. I'm in the middle of... Elena. Webb's voice cracked. They have my father. The video played on Webb Jr.'s phone. Grainy. Dark. The kind of footage taken by security cameras in places that weren't supposed to exist. Colonel Marcus Webb, tied to a chair. Blood on his face. Two masked figures standing behind him. Major Mercer? A distorted voice spoke from off-screen. We know what you're planning tonight. We know about Torres. We know about the evidence. Elena's blood ran cold. If you proceed with your action against General Blackwood, Colonel Webb will die. If you contact military police, Colonel Webb will die. If you do anything other than walk out of this building in the next 5 minutes, Colonel Webb will die. The video ended. Webb Jr.'s hands were shaking. They took him 2 hours ago, said they'd release him if you cooperated. It's a trap. I know it's a trap. But he's my father. Elena looked at the blank screen, at the man who had helped her, who had believed in her, who had given her the evidence that started all of this. They had him. Nightfall had him. Torres, she said into her earpiece. Abort. They have Webb. Silence. Torres, respond. Nothing. Romano, static. Elena's heart stopped. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. Major Mercer. Blackwood's voice came from behind her. She turned. The general stood at the edge of the room, surrounded by 6 armed security personnel, and behind him, hands zip-tied, blood dripping from his temple, stood Michael Torres. I believe you've met my guest. Blackwood smiled. The smile of a predator who had just cornered his prey. Your father's friend has been a thorn in my side for 15 years. Tonight, that ends. Elena reached for her sidearm. I wouldn't. Blackwood raised his hand. Your man Romano is currently being detained in the service corridor. One wrong move, and he joins Colonel Webb in a very unpleasant situation. Elena's hand froze. What do you want? I want what I've always wanted. Order, control, profit. Blackwood walked toward her, slowly, like a man who had all the time in the world. Your father wanted to expose me. He failed. Torres wanted to expose me. He failed, and now you... I won't fail. You already have. Blackwood stopped in front of her. You're alone. Your allies are captured. Your evidence is about to be destroyed, and in 30 seconds my people will take you somewhere quiet where we can have a proper conversation. Elena looked at Torres, at the blood on his face, at the defiance still burning in his eyes. Dave would be proud of you, Torres said, no matter what happens. Shut up! One of the guards struck him across the face. Elena felt something snap inside her. Years of training, years of discipline, years of keeping her emotions locked away. All of it burned away in an instant. You killed my father. Her voice was quiet, deadly. You killed 34 American soldiers. You've been selling out this country for 30 years. And I'll continue for 30 more. Blackwood shrugged. Some men build empires. Some men serve them. I chose to build. You chose to murder. Semantics. Blackwood gestured to his men. Take her. The guards moved forward. Elena didn't move. You forgot something, General. What's that? Elena smiled. It was the smile her father had taught her, the smile of someone who had already won. You forgot that I'm not alone. The doors burst open. Diana Ortiz, Preacher Williams, Morrison, Chen. Every surviving member of Team Phantom. And behind them, Secretary Westwood, with 20 armed MPs. General Arthur Blackwood, Westwood's voice carried across the room. You are under arrest for treason conspiracy and the murder of 34 American service members. Blackwood's face went white. This is impossible. How? You thought you captured Torres. Elena stepped forward. You captured a decoy. The real Torres has been broadcasting this entire conversation to every screen in the Pentagon. She pointed to the monitors around the room. Every single one showed Blackwood's face, his words, his confession. Order, control, profit. And I'll continue for 30 more. Every general, every admiral, every senator in the building had heard him. Blackwood lunged for Elena. She was faster. Her training took over. SEAL combat techniques that she'd learned in Hell Week and perfected in a dozen war zones. She caught his wrist, twisted. Her knee drove into his solar plexus. Her elbow cracked against his jaw. Blackwood went down. The second most powerful military officer in the United States, sprawled on the floor of the Pentagon, taken down by a woman he'd called weak. Elena stood over him. My father said to find my true north. He said the mission was never about me. She pulled Kowalski's dog tags from around her neck, held them in front of Blackwood's face. This is Sergeant First Class Andrew Kowalski. He was 24 years old. He died in Syria because of you. She pulled out her father's compass. This belonged to Master Chief David Mercer. He was 42 years old. He died in Yemen because of you. She leaned down. And I'm Major Elena Mercer. I'm 34 years old. And I'm the woman who just ended your empire. MPs moved in to secure Blackwood. Torres appeared beside her, bloody but free. "Your father would be proud," he said. "I know." Elena watched them drag Blackwood away. "I know." The aftermath was chaos. News cameras, official statements, congressional hearings announced before the night was over. But Elena slipped away from all of it. She found a quiet corridor, leaned against the wall, let herself breathe for the first time in what felt like years. Romano found her there. "Hell of a night, Major. Hell of a week." He stood beside her in silence for a moment. "I laughed at you," he said finally. 3 days ago, in that briefing room. I laughed. I remember. I was wrong." Romano turned to face her. "You're the best commander I've ever served under, the strongest soldier I've ever known, and I'm sorry I couldn't see it until you dragged me through hell to prove it." Elena looked at him, this giant of a man, humbled. "Apology accepted." Romano extended his hand. "It's an honor to serve with you, Major Mercer." Elena gripped it. "The honor is mine, Sergeant Romano." They stood there in the quiet corridor, two soldiers who had become something more. Allies, friends, family. Elena's phone buzzed. Message from Secretary Westwood. "Task Force Sentinel is officially activated. You have full authority, full resources, full mandate." Elena stared at the message. It was over. And it was just beginning. 3 weeks after the Pentagon. 3 weeks since General Arthur Blackwood was led away in handcuffs. 3 weeks since Elena Mercer became the most famous military officer in America. The congressional hearing room was packed. Senators, representatives, military officials, reporters, every seat filled, every camera rolling. Elena sat at the witness table, her dress uniform immaculate, her father's compass hidden beneath her jacket. Torres sat beside her, Diana and Romano behind them. Senator Patricia Morrison leaned into her microphone. "Major Mercer, you've provided this committee with evidence of a corruption network spanning 30 years. Evidence that implicates a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, 3 generals, 12 colonels, and over 40 defense contractors." "Yes, ma'am." "The death toll attributed to this network now stands at 147 American service members, including your father, Master Chief David Mercer." Elena's jaw tightened. "Yes, ma'am." "How do you respond to those who say you acted outside your authority, that you endangered national security by exposing classified operations?" Elena looked directly at the camera, at the millions of Americans watching. "Senator, my father taught me that duty means doing what's right, not what's easy. He taught me that honor isn't about following orders blindly. It's about protecting the people who trust you with their lives." She paused. 147 Americans died because powerful men decided profit mattered more than patriotism. They died because the people who should have protected them chose to sell them instead. They died because no one was willing to stand up and say, "Enough." Elena straightened. "I said enough. My team said enough. And now we're asking this committee to ensure it never happens again." The room erupted in applause. Senator Morrison banged her gavel. "Order! Order!" But Elena could see it in their faces. The senators, the officials, the reporters. They believed her. They finally believed her. The vote came 2 hours later. Unanimous. Task Force Sentinel was officially authorized by congressional mandate. Full funding, full authority, full protection from political interference. Elena stood in the corridor outside the hearing room, surrounded by her team. Torres, Romano, Diana, Preacher, Morrison, Chen, Webb Jr., the surviving members of an impossible mission. "So what happens now?" Diana asked. Elena looked at the faces around her. People who had bled with her, fought with her, nearly died with her. "Now we get to work." "Work," Romano laughed. "Major, we just took down the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. What's left? Everything." Elena pulled out a folder Torres had given her that morning. "Blackwood's network extended into 6 countries. We've identified 3 more active cells selling American intelligence, 2 defense contractors still operating under false pretenses, and somewhere out there the people who originally recruited Blackwood are still in business. You're saying this isn't over?" "It's never over." Elena met each person's eyes in turn. "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." Someone said that once. They were right. Torres stepped forward. "Your father used to say the same thing. Every mission brief, every deployment. The job is never done, boys. We just get better at doing it." Elena felt the familiar ache in her chest, the grief that never quite went away. "Then let's get better at doing it." Fort Bragg, Task Force Sentinel Headquarters. Elena stood before her assembled team for the first official briefing. 40 personnel, investigators, analysts, operators, legal specialists, the best of the best, hand-picked from every branch of military service. 6 months ago, I was a tactical advisor that a 3-star general called a diversity hire. Elena's voice carried through the room. He laughed at me, called me weak, said I was playing dress-up in a uniform I didn't earn. She paused. That general is now awaiting trial for treason. The network he served has been exposed. And the weak girl he laughed at is standing in front of you as your commanding officer. A murmur rippled through the room. I'm telling you this not to brag, not to prove anything. I'm telling you because every single one of you is going to face the same thing. People who underestimate you, people who dismiss you, people who think they know what you're capable of based on how you look, where you come from, or what box they want to put you in. Elena stepped forward. Our job is to prove them wrong. Not with words, not with arguments, with results. We find corruption. We expose it. We protect the soldiers who put their lives in our hands. She pulled up the first case file on the main screen. Eastern European weapons trafficking. 3 defense contractors. 2 army colonels. Evidence of kickbacks, falsified testing equipment failures in combat. This is what killed my mother 28 years ago. This is what killed my father 8 years ago. This is what we stop before it kills anyone else. The room was silent. Questions. Romano raised his hand. Rules of engagement. We operate within legal authority but outside normal chain of command. We report directly to the Secretary of Defense and congressional oversight. If we find corruption, we expose it. Period. Even if it's politically inconvenient, Diana asked. Especially if it's politically inconvenient. That's when corruption hides best. Elena looked at her team, at the faces that would become her family, at the people who would fight beside her in wars that would never make headlines. One more thing. Some of you knew my father. Some of you served with people who died because of the corruption we're fighting. This isn't just a job. It's a mission. It's a calling, and I expect every single one of you to treat it that way. She straightened. Dismissed. Operations begin in 72 hours. Get some sleep. You're going to need it. The room emptied slowly, but the energy remained. Something had changed. Something had begun. That night, Elena drove to Arlington National Cemetery. She'd been avoiding this visit. avoiding the weight of it, avoiding the grief that threatened to overwhelm her every time she thought about what she'd lost. But she couldn't avoid it anymore. Her father's grave was in Section 60, surrounded by other warriors who had given everything. The headstone was simple, elegant. Master Chief David Mercer, United States Navy, SEAL Team 6, January 15, 1974, March 8, 2016. Beloved husband, devoted father, American hero. Someone had added a new inscription below the original. Fresh. Recent. Justice served, October 2024. Elena knelt on the grass. The night was cold, but she barely felt it. I got them, Dad. Her voice broke on the words. I got the ones who killed you. Caldwell, Blackwood, the whole network. They're going to prison. They're going to pay for what they did. She touched the headstone. Cold marble. Unforgiving. I know you can't hear me. I know this is just me talking to a rock. But I needed you to know. I needed you to know that everything you taught me, everything you sacrificed, it mattered. It meant something. Tears streamed down her face. She didn't try to stop them. They called me weak, Dad. They laughed at me, said I was too small, too female, too everything they thought I should be. She pulled out her father's compass, held it in her palm. But you taught me that strength isn't about size. It's about heart. It's about courage. It's about standing up when everyone else is sitting down. The compass was warm in her hand, like her father was holding it with her. I'm leading a task force now. Sentinel, we're going to find every single person who sells out American soldiers. We're going to expose them. We're going to make sure no one else dies the way you did. Elena stood. Her legs were unsteady, but her voice was strong. I'm not going to let you down, Dad. I'm not going to let any of them down. Every soldier who trusted their leadership, every family who lost someone to corruption, every American who believes that honor still means something. She saluted her father's grave. Crisp, perfect, the way he'd taught her when she was 6 years old. Mission continues, Master Chief. We've got work to do. A figure emerged from the shadows. Torres. He'd been waiting, watching, giving her privacy while staying close enough to protect her. How long have you been there? Long enough. Torres walked to stand beside her, his eyes on David Mercer's headstone. I used to come here every year, his birthday, the anniversary, Christmas. I didn't know. Nobody did. That was the point. Torres was quiet for a moment. He talked about you constantly, every deployment, every mission. My girl is going to change the world, Mike. You watch. She's going to be better than all of us. Elena felt fresh tears threatening. He was wrong. I'm not better. I'm just what? Just trying to be half the person he was. Torres turned to face her. His eyes held decades of grief, decades of waiting, decades of hoping for exactly this moment. Elena, your father was the best man I ever knew, but he was wrong about one thing. You're not going to be better than all of us. Torres put his hand on her shoulder. You already are. Mike, you did what he couldn't, what I couldn't. You stood in the light when we could only work in shadows. You faced Caldwell. You faced Blackwood. You faced the entire system that was designed to crush you. Torres's voice cracked. Dave would be so proud. So damn proud. Elena felt something release in her chest. A weight she'd been carrying for 8 years. A burden she'd thought would never lift. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. For waiting. For protecting me. for believing this day would come. I never doubted it. Torres smiled. It was the first genuine smile she'd seen on his face. You're David Mercer's daughter. Doubt was never an option. They stood together in front of the grave, two soldiers who had lost everything and found each other in the ruins. What happens now? Elena asked. Now we finish what we started. Sentinel. The network. The fight that never ends. Together. Torres nodded. I've been a ghost for 15 years. Time to come back to life. Elena extended her hand. Welcome back, Sergeant Major Torres. Sergeant Major, Secretary Westwood approved the promotion this morning. You're my senior enlisted advisor, if you want the job. Torres gripped her hand. I've been waiting 15 years for someone to ask. Then the answer is yes. The answer was always yes. Torres released her hand. From the moment I saw you take down Caldwell, from the moment I realized you were everything your father said you'd be. Elena looked at her father's grave one last time. We've got work to do, Dad. Watch over us. She turned and walked away. Torres fell in beside her. Two warriors. One mission. The fight continued. 6 months later. Elena stood in the Oval Office. Secretary Westwood beside her. The President of the United States across the desk. Major Mercer, what you've accomplished in 6 months is unprecedented. 17 corruption cases closed, 43 arrests, 3 defense contractors shut down, and a complete overhaul of military procurement oversight. Thank you, Mr. President. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs estimates your work has saved over $200 million in fraudulent contracts. More importantly, it's restored faith in military leadership at a time when that faith was desperately needed. The president stood, extended his hand. On behalf of a grateful nation, thank you. Elena shook his hand. I was just doing my job, sir. No. The president's grip was firm. You were doing something much more important. You were doing what was right. He released her hand and picked up a document from his desk, which is why I'm promoting you to Lieutenant Colonel effective immediately, and why I'm making Task Force Sentinel a permanent division within the Department of Defense. Elena stared at him. Sir, you've proven that internal accountability matters. You've proven that corruption can be fought and beaten. Now I want you to build something that outlasts any individual investigation. The president handed her the document. This is your authorization. Unlimited mandate. Permanent funding. Report directly to this office. Elena looked at the document. Her hands were trembling. Mr. President, I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep fighting. Say you'll keep protecting the soldiers who trust us with their lives. Say you'll keep being the person your father raised you to be. Elena straightened. The tears in her eyes didn't fall. I will, sir. I promise. The promotion ceremony was held at Fort Bragg. Every member of Task Force Sentinel attended, plus Diana, Romano, Preacher, Chen, Morrison, Webb Jr., the original team that had started it all. Secretary Westwood pinned the silver oak leaves on Elena's collar. Lieutenant Colonel Elena Mercer, by order of the President of the United States, you are hereby promoted to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, with all the rights and privileges thereto. The room erupted in applause. Elena stood at attention, her father's compass against her chest, Kowalski's dog tags around her neck. Every sacrifice that had brought her to this moment weighing on her shoulders. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It was fuel. Torres stepped forward, handed her a folded flag. This was recovered from your father's memorial in Yemen. I've been carrying it for 8 years, waiting to give it to someone who earned it. Elena took the flag. Her hands were steady. Thank you, Mike. Thank your father. He's the one who believed in you. Torres stepped back, saluted. Lieutenant Colonel Mercer, it's an honor to serve under your command. Elena returned the salute. The honor is mine, Sergeant Major. The honor has always been mine. That night, Elena stood alone in her new office. The walls were bare. The desk was empty. Everything waiting to be filled with the work ahead. Her phone buzzed. Message from Romano. Congratulations, Colonel. Drinks are on me. The whole team is at O'Malley's. You coming? Elena smiled, typed her response. Save me a seat. I'll be there in 20. She set down the phone, looked around the empty office. 6 months ago, she'd been a tactical advisor that no one respected, a woman that generals laughed at, a soldier that the system had written off as a diversity hire. Now she commanded the most elite anti-corruption unit in American military history. Her phone buzzed again. Different number. Encrypted. Elena opened the message. Congratulations, Lieutenant Colonel. Blackwood's network may be destroyed, but others remain. We are watching. We are waiting. Nightfall never truly dies. No signature. No identification. Elena stared at the message, felt the familiar surge of determination rising in her chest. They thought they could scare her. They thought threats and shadows would make her back down. They were wrong. She typed her response. I know you're watching. I know you're waiting. And I want you to know something. She paused, then continued. I'm not afraid. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to find every single one of you. I'm going to expose every operation. I'm going to bring down every network. And when I'm done, the only shadows left will be the ones where you're hiding from justice. She sent the message, then added one more line. My name is Elena Mercer. My father was Master Chief David Mercer. My mother was Commander Evelyn Thorne. They taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the determination to fight anyway. So bring your shadows. Bring your threats. Bring everything you have. She smiled. I'll be waiting. Elena walked out of her office, down the corridor, through the doors of Fort Bragg. The night air was cold, clear. Stars scattered across the sky like promises waiting to be kept. Romano's truck idled at the curb. Diana waved from the passenger seat. Torres sat in the back, his face finally at peace. You coming, Colonel? Romano called. Elena looked up at the stars, thought about her father, her mother, every sacrifice that had led to this moment. Yeah, she said. I'm coming. She climbed into the truck. Surrounded by the people who had become her family, the warriors who had fought beside her through impossible odds. As they drove toward O'Malley's, Elena pulled out her father's compass one final time. The metal was warm, familiar, a connection to everyone she'd lost and everything she'd gained. The inscription on the back caught the streetlight. Find your true north. The mission is never about you. Elena closed her fingers around it. She had found her true north, and the mission was just beginning. The truck pulled into O'Malley's parking lot. Laughter spilled from inside. The sounds of soldiers celebrating, the sounds of family reunited. Elena stepped out, looked back at the road they'd traveled, the battles they'd won, the losses they'd survived. Romano appeared beside her. You okay, Colonel? Better than okay. Elena turned to face him. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And where's that? Elena smiled, the smile of a woman who had walked through fire and emerged stronger. home. She walked through the doors of O'Malley's, into the arms of her team, into the celebration of everything they'd accomplished, the weak girl they had laughed at, the daughter who had avenged her father, the soldier who had changed everything. Elena Mercer had found her true north, and nothing would ever make her lose it again. The mission continues. The fight never ends. But for tonight, just for tonight, she allowed herself to celebrate. Tomorrow, new battles waited. Tomorrow, new enemies would rise. Tomorrow, the shadows would try again. But Lieutenant Colonel Elena Mercer would be ready. She was her father's daughter. She was her mother's legacy. She was the ghost who haunted corruption. And she was just getting started. The end. For every soldier who was ever underestimated, for every warrior who was ever dismissed, for every person who was told they couldn't and proved they could, the weak don't inherit the earth. They fight for it, and sometimes they win.